Oops, let me pay there. Y excelente. Y feliz miércoles. Happy Wednesday. Feliz miércoles. Espero que ustedes estén bien. I hope you guys are all well. I need to get my Spanish keyboard up and my chat box up in case I need to send anything through. Okay. Fantástico. Vamos a practicar. Oh, we're going to practice with a lot of things here. Mostly it'll be some preterite, little bit of this, a little bit of that. And actually, I think this is from last week. Were you, and I've got to pause this. Sorry. Whoop. I've got to pause this and I've got to get all kinds of stuff. Ooh. I cannot get my controls to go here. I had forgotten to ask this the other week, last week, the little story about moving the chair. Did you guys get a chance to watch that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sí, es muy divertido.
Muy divertido. Okay. ¿Entendieron ustedes la mayoría de las ideas? Did you get most of everything in that story?
Mhm.
Yeah, one of them speaking almost normal speed is difficult, but two of them interacting at normal speed was really difficult.
Okay, yeah, when you get the play of, and actually it's interesting because both of them teach Spanish, but when you get two people in a dynamic, they start going faster and they know they would normally need to go quite slowly. Plus they're both Catalan, which that complicates it a little bit more because Catalan, well, hablan español, obviously, es obvio que sí hablan español. Obviously they do speak Spanish because they're from Barcelona, but in Barcelona, it's a little bit of a faster pace. So yeah, there might have been a little challenge to that, but if you have any questions about those, let me know. We'll have some interesting storytelling videos for you for the coming week. A ver, momentito.
Marilyn?
Okay, sí,
Una pregunta.
sí. Oh, you got your bronze book.
¿Usted usa este libro para francés?
Sí, un poquito, pero
Muy difícil.
la verdad es que durante la última semana, yo no hice mucho. I did not do much last week. Así que sí, yeah, I fell off the wagon for about a week. So I've got to go to catch up. But yeah, and I'm actually being kind of hard on myself because I'm looking at con el francés, the accent grave, accent aigu. Yeah, I'm counting that, and that is hard and bad and difficult for me. So es difícil. That's a tough one. Pero sí. Yeah, I hope some of you are still moving on with the little bronze book thing or gold list, yeah. And finding that helpful. Some people said they did find it helpful, but it takes some dedication, doesn't it? So
Para mí, no puedo todos los días un nuevo listo.
okay. Una nueva lista, sí, sí, es difícil. Okay, entiendo. I do understand that. I'm going to try to find a good source that would give you some helpful words, maybe, that you could maybe pick your daily lists from with less pain. Or maybe I'm going to try to find a site that might give you some helpful vocabulary where you can just go and say, oh, here's a topic and maybe pick some ideas.
El vocabulario no es un problema. Para todos los días un nuevo listo. Okay. Maybe every trace 4 o 5 días nuevo listo.
Okay. Okay. Sí, está bien. And this is kind of designed, and a lot of the people who I found videos on using gold lists, you know, they kind of pointedly said, there are days where I drop. There are days where I drop and I don't make a new list just because people get busy and then you forget. And, you know, yeah, that happens. So,
Gracias.
okay. So you don't need a source to look at to find actual words.
No,
No. Okay. Bien.
not for me.
Okay.
Juan at Spanish Dictionary. Every day I get a new word with meaning, with definition, sentences, and then 5 review words that they've shown in the past. And that I don't have to generate it, it just comes. And that means I'm not having, I just have to go through it when it arrives in my email.
Was it Spanish dict?
Juan at Spanish Dick, yes.
Oh, okay. I will see if I can find that to see how that works. Okay. Vale, gracias. It helps for people to compare notes on, you know, what do you do? Yeah, you can find little tips for things that work for other people. That's good. Excelente. Okay. Bueno, a ver. Ok, vamos a practicar un poquito con, claro, el pasado, porque el tema de estas clases los miércoles es practicar con el pasado, con el pretérito, con el imperfecto. And today I want to split it up and again, continue to do like a couple of verbs, like not clump all the irregulars together, but do a couple of irregulars. So we're going to continue with that practice. Los dos verbos especiales para hoy son hacer y venir, hacer y venir. And people study these in different orders, sometimes according to spelling changes that happen in those stems. And I hope to introduce the 2 new ones that I'll assign for next week. I'm hoping we'll get a little time to also, besides doing our practice with irregular preterites, in addition to that, also, I hope we can fit in a little bit of practice with, let's go back to some imperfecto and practice that. In addition, kind of a like, go back and review what's imperfecto, because of course we always join these 2 tenses and that's just the way that works. Okay, vamos a empezar con hacer y venir, hacer y venir. You know, sadly, it seems like a lot of the verbs that wind up being extremely common verbs wind up being in that bucket of verbs in Spanish that are irregular preterites a lot. Why that is, I do not know, but you know, there are certain little tricks that maybe we can use to help us remember what little things make these irregular, and so that we have maybe a little less memorization to do. So these 2 verbs for hacer and venir are both in the irregular preterite bucket, and they will use these endings, okay, of the e with no accent mark, the iste, the o with no accent mark, the imos, the istes, the ieron, and we had these. I need to take these out. We don't need that. We needed these new ones. Hacer y venir, use those pink conjugation endings, but the stem, the body of the verb itself, has these modifications. Hacer mainly H-I-C and venir mainly V-I-N, which differs a little bit. Oh, that means we swap out this vowel in hacer for this vowel. We swap out this vowel in venir for, again, the same vowel, I. So what they have in common is that they take a letter I, or en español, I, and they flip that into the stem itself to change things out. So we're going to be using these forms here. Las formas de hacer, and remember, hacer will have two translations because the verb means both to make or to do. Hice, hiciste, hizo with that funny Z, which has to be there because of a spelling change, right? We can't have H-I-C-O, or it'll be pronounced hico. Hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron, and venir will use vine, viniste, vino, just like the word for wine. It's the exact same as pronunciation, vino, vinimos, vinisteis, vinieron. Okay, bien, so, how would we, I don't think we got a chance to, we didn't get a chance to correct these, did we? No, I just gave you these to check on. How, this verb hacer will commonly be used a lot to ask questions. What did you do? What did he do? What did they do? So this verb you hear a lot in the question. You may hear it less in the answer because people may substitute a totally different verb for the answer. Just as we do in English, what did your neighbor do? Oh, he cut the bushes, you know, and we don't say he did cut the bushes. We are more likely to say we take out what did he do, and we throw that away and we insert the actual action that he did. He cut the branches, he pulled the weeds, he washed his car, whatever it was he did. We substitute a different thing, but the question itself will need to use a form of hacer. Okay, entonces, ¿cómo se dice la pregunta? ¿Cómo se expresa la pregunta? How do we express this question? What did you do yesterday?
¿Qué hiciste ayer?
Sí, ¿qué hiciste ayer? ¿Qué hiciste ayer? Perfecto. ¿Qué hiciste? And that did you do is all in one word. We need in English, did you do? In Spanish, you just need that one word, hiciste, right? And the did just flags the past tense in English. What did you guys do this weekend? ¿Qué?
Hicieron ustedes esta fin de semana.
Typically, we'll put the verb in first before the ustedes, yeah. ¿Qué hicieron? ¿Qué hicieron? And they may include ustedes, they may not include the word ustedes, it depends if it's understood. ¿Qué hicieron ustedes? This weekend, este fin de semana, ¿no? ¿Qué hicieron ustedes este fin de semana? So here we need hicieron, and people may keep the ustedes or drop the ustedes. People won't necessarily say that pronoun. Depends on if they think it's obvious or not. What did your partner do after eating dinner?
Que hizo tu esposo después la cena?
Sí. ¿Qué hizo? And if you take partner to be a spouse, it'll be esposo or esposa, right? You could be talking about a partner like at work. And then it could be something like colega. Sí. Pero hizo. ¿Qué hizo? Because we're only talking about one person. So what did he do? What did she do? ¿Qué hizo tu esposo? ¿Qué hizo tu esposa? ¿Qué hizo tu colega? Después de cenar.
De cenar.
Después de cenar. That is the fastest way to say that. You could say después de la cena, after dinner, But after eating dinner would be después de cenar, and that would wrap that all up. Después de cenar. All right. But again, because we've got this little word de, a preposition, the way to say eating dinner has to go into an infinitive.
Would you
Cenar.
get shot if you said después de comer la cena?
Bien. Sí, perfecto. Está bien. That's okay too. Después de comer la cena, sí, igual. Same, different way of saying it, but same idea. Same idea gets across very easily. Okay. What did you and your family do on the 4th of July?
¿Qué hicieron tú y su familia en 4 de julio?
Sí, el 4 de julio. ¿Qué hicieron tú y tu familia? You and your family, tú y tu familia, el 4 de julio. El 4 de julio on 4th of July. And they don't use on. You would think they would use en. In English, we use in. And in Spanish is usually, often, en or on. In or on is usually translated as en. But for a date, we generally don't use en. We use el 4 de julio for dates. And, oh, you say to somebody, this one's not a question. I didn't do anything. Hey, listen. Ooh, how do you get somebody's attention? Hey.
Oye,
Oye, ¿qué sí?
There are a lot of ways. Well, there are a lot of ways to do it, but a common one would be, oye,
Okay.
Vijay.
oye, oye, oh, I didn't do anything.
Oh, hice nada.
Nada.
Perdón. Where did I take my did it back? No. Okay, bien. No hice
Nada.
nada. No hice nada. No hice nada. No hice nada. And we need a double negative here, right? Because double negative is often needed. You could technically say nada hice, but nobody's going to say it that way. Nada is always, almost always used as a double negative. No hice nada. Pero el verbo, lo más importante aquí, el verbo tiene la forma de hice. I didn't do. The didn't do part for yo is hice. Okay. Bien. Fantastico. We'll underline these for people who need to go back and look at the answers later. Okay, so now some kinds of actions do keep that verb hacer from the question into the answer, because there are times when hacer is used in a specific phrase that always does need hacer. So sometimes having the verb hacer in the question will also use hacer in the answer sometimes if you're expressing something like hacer un viaje, take a trip, because that's just the verb you use to say take a trip, right? Hacer mi tarea, doing homework or doing chores of some kind. Hacer la comida, making food. And that, you can use a lot of things. You could use preparar la comida. You can use cocinar. You can use a whole bunch of things. Or hacer la cama. But these are typical phrases that frequently use that specific verb hacer. Okay. Often when you answer that question, what did somebody do? However, we use a completely different verb that is not hacer in the answer, right? If somebody says, what did you do at 5 a.m.? Oh, I went to McDowell Mountain Park. ¿Qué hiciste a las 5 de la mañana? Fui al parque McDowell Mountain, ¿sí? Fui al parque de McDowell Mountain. Okay. pero I had to change the verb in the answer. So it'll be things like, you know, ¿qué hiciste? What did you do? Ah, comí un buen desayuno. I ate a nice breakfast. Ah, vi mis correos electrónicos. I looked at my emails. Caminé en el parque. I walked in the park. Fui al mercado. I went to the market. So, right. The ¿qué hiciste question often will substitute a wholly different verb in the answer, but that verb will be in the preterite past tense. It's a frequent thing to happen. So let's look at some phrases that typically do keep the verb hacer in both the question and the answer. Cuando hiciste la tarea? ¿Cómo se contesta? How do we answer the question like this?
Hice mi tarea después de la clase.
Okay, hice mi tarea después de la clase. And the only thing that will really change here will be that timeline, because you might put in a different kind of time signature. Hice mi tarea el sábado, hice mi tarea ayer. No, so the time will shift around, but hice. With hiciste in the question, we need a yo response, and it'll have the verb itself will have to be hice in the answer. And again, these are phrases that typically use that verb hacer both in the question and in the answer. We're focusing on that to get a little more practice first. ¿Quién hizo la cama en tu casa? Ooh, who made the bed in your house?
Mi esposo hizo mi cama en mi casa.
Ah, tienes un esposo fantástico. Mi esposo hizo la cama. Mi esposo hizo la cama. My husband made the bed. Mi esposo nunca hace la cama.
Carolyn,
Yo
can I
sí.
ask a quick question here? So
Sí, claro.
So this question was who made the bed?
Exacto.
In your house, sounds like a one-timer. If you were just going to say kind of in general, who makes the bed, it would just use present tense.
Exacto. What is the purpose for using present tense? Es buena pregunta, Mark. This is a good question. The purpose for using, you probably don't think about this because nobody thinks about this unless they have to. We use present tense to say something is happening right now, but we also use present tense to talk about a general habit, a pattern, right? Something we use present tense not just to say what is happening at this time right now, but also to talk about how things are generally done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. Por ejemplo, voy al supermercado para comprar la comida de toda la familia. And from that, you might take it to say, I'm going to the store, or I go to the store to shop for the whole family. But probably what I'm saying in that is that, I always do this. So what one generally does, what the usual pattern tends to be, you'll flip back to plain old present tense for that.
How is that different than imperfecto?
Let's look at that same sentence 3 different ways. Vale la pena. It's actually worth it to look at that. To talk about a general pattern of what somebody does every day, and you mean like all the time, but not in the past, but what they generally do. Mi esposo hace la cama, hace la cama. And people will take that to mean, oh, that's the usual thing that goes on in your household. Mi esposo hace la cama. He generally makes the bed. He usually does that. Okay, most days. But if I use it in the imperfecto, which, que si es posible, which is also possible, it would sound like this. Mi esposo hacía la cama. Mi esposo hacía la cama changes the meaning a little bit. What it means is my husband used to make the bed.
Okay.
He did it a lot. It might mean that he doesn't anymore, or sure, it can be talking in general too, but that hace takes it from now into, yeah, right, future.
Okay.
Pattern that will probably happen tomorrow, that will probably happen the day after that, right? Whereas hacía really focuses on
The past.
who used to do that.
Okay.
Who used to do that as a habit. So that verb hacer can be used presente, hace la cama, what he usually does. And you know, ¿quién hizo la cama? Ah, mi esposo hace la cama, siempre hace la cama, siempre hace la cama. He always makes the bed. Well, if he always makes the bed, he probably was the one who made it today too, right? So somebody won't be massively confused if you answer that way. They'll be taking it to mean, oh, he's the guy who usually does that. And you're just saying he always does. Okay, bien. But yeah, en general, mi esposo hizo la cama, that is a one and done as expressed in that idea with that verb.
Okay.
Sí es. Okay. A ver, entonces, ¿qué hiciste para la cena anoche? What did you make for dinner yesterday? Literally, what did you do for dinner? But yeah, what did you make? Because hacer can also mean make. Yo hice pollo.
Pollo.
Hice
También.
pollo
Y
para
también.
la cena anoche.
Sí.
Hice pollo. And this verb we plug in indicates one and done, right? And this bit of information doesn't tell me anything about when it happened, just what it is that was cooked, right? Hice pollo, hice un bistec, etcétera. Bien. Okay. ¿A dónde hiciste un viaje este año? Where did you take a trip?
Mi familia y yo hicimos Ogden Dunes.
Hicimos un viaje.
Un viaje a Ogden Dunes.
Ay, ¿cómo se escribe? Dunes.
Ogden Dunes.
Sí. No sé. Okay.
Eh,
Hicimos un viaje, and we'll just put that in there. Porque no sé escribir el nombre del lugar. I don't know how to write the name of that place. Okay. Hicimos un viaje. Now, notice she changed it to a nosotros, which is okay if what you mean is, you know, if what you mean to say is I took this trip, but I didn't do it by myself. Is it okay to change that verb to hicimos? Well, pues sí. Well, yes. If what you mean is, oh, well, it wasn't just me that took the trip, right? So if you change that to hicimos, está bien, it's okay, right? Because it depends on your particular situation. If you only talk about yourself, it'll be hice un viaje. Hice un viaje a Colorado, por ejemplo. Hice un viaje a California. Hice un viaje al Gran Cañón, Grand Canyon. ¿Sí? Depende. Bien.
So question.
Sí,
a
Mariana.
question. So that really kind of makes out that we made a vacation to such a place. Is that?
Sí.
So if you wanted to say we went, that would be the.
And you could answer that with we went.
Okay.
You could. And would somebody be confused? Not at all. They wouldn't even bat an eyelash at you. Fuimos, you're just substituting in a different verb. But you're still answering it in the past. Fuimos Fuimos al Gran Cañón. Ok, bien. Por ejemplo, fuimos a California. Bien, ¿vale? Sí, fui.
Okay.
If I only went solo by myself, could you plug in yet even a different verb? Viajé a California. Sí, sí, sí. So I guess the point to take away from this is because hacer un viaje means, you're right, literally made a trip, but we're probably more likely to say take a trip. See, hacer un viaje, because can you use a different verb? Yes, if that verb answers that. If you say instead, I traveled, or I drove, or I went, all those things say where you took your trip. Yes, you can swap out a different verb as long as you're keeping it consistent with letting them know it's pretérito. It's the one and done completed action thing. Perfecto.
Okay.
There might be very easily different verbs you can flip in. And we do that in English all the time. Oh, where did you take a trip? Oh, we flew. Oh, volar. You could even use volar. Volé. Volé a San Francisco, por ejemplo. I flew to San Francisco. Absolutely. Because, yeah, sometimes people don't answer with the same verb that you had in the question, as long as it's across the same idea.
But those are all common responses, right? Because hacemos seems kind of clunky to me. I would probably, I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
No, está bien. It's good, but you know, people will plug in whatever verb they feel like. Hacer un viaje is a very common string of words strung together to say, I took a trip.
Okay.
I took a trip. See, tomar vacaciones, take vacations, ir de vacaciones, go on vacation. There are different verbs that can be used in that context. Okay. Now, these are all situations where we're going to have to nuke this verb in the question. We're going to have to nuke it. And why do we have to nuke it? Because we have to put in a totally different verb to really answer it. Okay, so all these questions say, what did somebody do? But in order to answer it in a way that makes sense, we're going to have to take the did you do out and substitute a completely different verb. All right, it would be as if in English you ask somebody, hey, what did you do at 10 o'clock last night? And you said, oh, I did at 10 o'clock. I did at 10 o'clock. You did what? Right? And it doesn't answer the question. You have to plug in a different verb, right? I went to bed at 10 o'clock. I read the paper at 10 o'clock. I watched a movie at 10 o'clock. You got to plug in something different. Okay. ¿Qué hiciste a las 8 de la mañana? Por ejemplo.
Yo monté mi bicicleta de ejercicio a las 8.
Monté mi bicicleta. I rode my bike. Monté en bicicleta. Monté en bicicleta para hacer ejercicio. Para hacer ejercicio. To exercise. If you want to add that idea in. Para, in order to. Para hacer ejercicio. Bien. Ok. Vale, perfecto. Otra idea.
Comí el desayuno.
Comí desayuno.
Sí, comí un buen desayuno, comí el desayuno. Bien, bien.
Fui al parque con mi perro a las 8 de la mañana.
Fui al parque con mi perro. Muy normal. Fui al parque. Bueno, otra idea.
The
Okay.
noticias en el tele.
Ok. Bien. Bien. Ok. Bien. Entonces es cualquier cosa. It can be anything that you did. Just make sure you put it in pretérito, because the question is not what are you doing now, but what did you do at a certain time or on a certain day. ¿Qué hizo tu amigo este fin de semana? What did your buddy do this weekend? Mi amiga manejó, manejó al parque Browns Ranch. Bien, este fin de semana. Mi amiga manejó desde el norte de Phoenix hasta Browns Ranch este fin de semana. Bien, ok.
Mi amiga y yo salimos a la cena.
Salimos a la cena, salimos a cenar, salimos a cenar. Bien, sí, bien. Bueno, Marcos.
Mi amigo visitó su madre en California.
Mi amigo visitó a su madre en California. Sí, visitó.
Visitó, yeah.
Visitó. Yeah. And, you know, we try to emphasize, and you did say it correctly, punching the O at the end. Sí, pronunciaste bien. You pronounced it well. Visitó a su mamá. Ok, bien. Bueno, ¿qué hizo tu familia? What did your family do? And notice, familia is a collective unit kind of noun. So even though it's a bunch of people, it's tu familia. ¿Qué hizo tu familia? It's not like saying, ¿qué hicieron las familias en el parque? What did the families? They're all a bunch of different little family units, yeah? But now, people might answer that with a plural verb or with a singular verb. You know, depends. So it'll get a third person answer, but some people may say they did this, or they might say my family did this and keep it singular. Depende. Entonces, ideas, your ideas.
Mi familia visitó el parque de Yellowstone este verano.
Sí, visitó el parque, sí, de Yellowstone. Excelente. ¿Qué más? What else?
Mi familia íbamos a Hawaii.
Ok. Mi familia fue a Hawaii.
Sí.
Fue a Hawaii.
Wouldn't you say we?
Well, if you preface it with mi familia,
Yeah.
and you want to use fuimos, you need to say mi familia y yo fuimos.
Okay.
Mi familia y yo, or just get rid of the mi familia y yo and just say fuimos.
Okay.
Okay. But if you preface it with an actual subject, then you need the mi familia y yo fuimos a Hawaii.
Okay.
Okay. Or drop the mi familia y yo and just say fuimos a Hawaii.
Okay.
Bien. Okay. Excelente. Or mi familia fue a Hawaii. Mi familia fue.
Right.
Fue. Ir is one of the odd ones that's really, really tough. Ir does not follow this nice pattern you have here for these other irregulars. It's just kind of weird
Right.
all over. Fui, fuiste, fue. There was a little video I used to show my teenagers years ago where he would go through the forms of ir, and he would say the way to remember that fui is only for yo is to think of going on a roller coaster, and you say fui. Go down the roller coaster. And the kids would all, it's a really interesting mental picture to see 30 kids going, "Whee!" putting their arms in the air as if they were on a roller coaster. And they would all get that idea that that's always for me. Fui, that's yo. Okay. But fue is, and you would think fue should be this one, but yeah, it's not. So ir is just odd all the way around, isn't it? You see why irregular preterite is just wacko stuff. Okay. Visitó, fue a Hawaii. Otras ideas.
I want to try one, but I'm not sure I have a real verb here.
Okay.
Planeamos la boda de nuestra hija.
¿Y cuál es el verbo otra vez? Planear.
Planeamos. We
Planeamos.
plan.
Sí, sí, sí.
Planeamos. We
Planeamos.
plan.
Sí, planeamos. Ok. Y voy a escribir el ejemplo aquí. Planeamos. We planned. And that amos is always the ending for nosotros. Planear es regular. Planear is just a regular verb. It is. How do I know that? I just know it is. Isn't that sad? You just need to know which ones are irregular. Planear is always regular in every tense. It's just one of those verbs that it's, oh, I never hear that used irregularly. It just is regular. Es regular. Visitó, regular. Fue, irregular. Planeamos, sí, regular. Perfecto. Ok. Mi familia lavó los platos. Todo el verano, see? That one should maybe be a lavaba, but I should pick something that's more of a one-time thing. Mi familia, ¿qué hizo mi familia? Mi familia, uy, este verano no hicimos mucho. We didn't do much este verano. Mi familia vio los fuegos artificiales. Mi familia vio los fuegos artificiales en este verano. My family watched some fireworks. Eso sí. Ok. Aquí.
Mi familia se quedó en la casa este verano.
Se quedó en casa. Se quedó en casa. My family stayed home. Mi familia se quedó en casa. And notice the se quedó just needs that little extra pronoun in front of the quedó, right? Because stayed happens to be reflexive. So reflexives can definitely be used in pretérito. Just like everything else, you just need the little pronoun in front of it. Se quedó en casa. Perfecto. Ok. Otra idea. Ok. Dime una cosa. Esto es muy interesante. This is a fun one. Not that any of us really watch our neighbors, you know, but dime una cosa rara. Tell me a weird thing. Rara es weird, strange, odd, unusual. Dime una cosa rara que hicieron tus vecinos. Tell me an odd thing your neighbors did.
Mis vecinos compraron un serpiente mascota.
Oh, compraron una serpiente como mascota. As a pet? Wow. Compraron, no
No es
compraron.
en realidad. No es en realidad. En mi cabeza.
Ok. Compraron una serpiente con mascota. Bien. Ok. Mis vecinos, y esto sí es la verdad, mis vecinos quemaron, burned. Quemaron las malas hierbas. They burned the weeds. Quemaron las malas hierbas
Ah,
en su patio, en su jardín. Mejor decir en su jardín. They burned the weeds in their backyard. Es larga historia. This is a long story. Sí. Quemaron las malas hierbas, que es ilegal.
Sí,
Sí. Sí.
Muy ilegal.
muy ilegal.
Quemaron las malas hierbas. They did not want to pull those weeds. They just decided, let's torch them. Okay.
Oh,
Es una cosa raras, ¿no? Okay. Something maybe less dangerous, but weird.
a
Mi
mis
vecina.
vecinos- oh,
Mi vecina caminó en la calle. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. Hacia atrás, walking backwards.
Oh, sí, sí, sí. Hacia atrás.
Hacia atrás y cante una canción muy raro.
Wow. Caminó hacia atrás. Hacia atrás would mean walking backwards.
Sí.
Atrás means like behind. Okay. Detrás is when something is stationary behind you. But if you're moving backwards, it's sí, hacia atrás, or for some things, atrás. Caminó hacia atrás, sí, atrás. Wow.
God.
Muy raro.
Uh-huh.
Una vez, hace 10 años, this is like 10 years ago, hace 10 años, un hombre caminó totalmente desnudo por la calle cerca de nuestra casa. El pobre, poor guy. No estaba muy bien. He wasn't in such good shape. Okay. Bien. Okay. Otra cosa rara. Sí, llama.
a mis vecinos les gusta ir a la cama muy, muy temprano.
Entonces, los vecinos se acostaron
So you have to say acostar, not ir.
muy temprano. Los vecinos se acostaron muy temprano. They went to bed really early, muy temprano.
¿A qué
Eso es-
hora? ¿A qué hora?
¿A qué hora?
A las 7.
Guys, 7.
7.
Iban a despertarse a las 3 de la mañana. Were they going to get up at 3 a.m. or something? Algo así.
Sí.
Así es. Sí, es una cosa rara. That is a weird thing. Es una cosa rara. Okay. A ver. Bueno, otra idea. Any other fun, odd things the neighbors did? Nada más, nada más. Okay. ¿Qué hicieron ustedes? Y lo que me refiero a tú y tu familia. ¿Qué hicieron ustedes durante la tempestad este fin de semana?
Nosotros nos quedamos en la casa.
Ok. Cenamos en casa. Bien. Cenamos en casa.
Nosotros jugamos Monopoly durante la tempestad.
Jugamos Monopoly. Jugamos Monopoly. Monopoly, sí. Durante la tempestad. Bien, sí. Fuimos a caminar en la calle durante la tempestad.
Wow.
Fuimos a caminar en la calle porque había un río muy pequeño, En la calle.
Marilyn, this is another one. This is referring to that present tense and the past tense and the general.
Sí, sí.
Because when I did a translation on this, I said el fin de semana pasado, mi esposo y yo, and when I did a translation, it said limpiamos, and then I said la casa durante tempestad.
Okay. Limpiamos la
But then-
casa.
Yeah, and then, but you could also say cleaned was also limpiaran, which that's what it seemed like it should have been.
Oh, okay.
Or it
Limpia.
could be, or it could be clean limpiado, which is the ED.
Limpiamos, we cleaned. Limpiamos, sí.
Yes.
Well, limpiaron would
Limpiaron.
mean they cleaned, my family, meaning my family.
Oh, right.
Maybe
right.
not me in the group, but the rest of them. Limpiaron la
right.
casa, sí. Limpiaban. It would not be limpiaban in this sense. Limpiaban would be
Okay.
turning it into imperfecto. This is what I'm hoping we have a little bit of time to go back and review. Limpiaban or limpiábamos would be we used to. And that would imply habit, habitual, that we did it more than once. But because this question is limiting it to
the
this
weekend.
weekend, something that happened at a specific, on a specific day or a couple of days right next to each other, right?
Right.
This is better suited to pretérito because we're pegging a certain point in time. Okay, so it would be possible to say, hey, what did you guys do every time it would rain? Like, you know, you want to say, well, if we're stuck at home, we always used to clean because that's what we used to do. But then it would have to imply more than once a habit that
Okay.
we did. Oh, if it's pouring outside, let's get to work inside. And that it happened more than one time. ¿Entiendes?
Okay.
Understand that? See?
Yeah, I think I got it now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you plug it in, if you plug into, if you take a translator and plug in cleaned, right?
Yeah.
It may give you both limpiamos and limpiábamos, or limpiaron and limpiábamos, limpiaban. It might plug in both of those verbs, but in order to know which one is right, you need to know the context of that question. And the context of the question is este fin de semana, this weekend. And that's
Right.
always considered a specific point. So think of it as like a timeline that you used to see as a kid in a history book. And if it just is a point on the timeline, it's got to be pretérito. Bien?
Okay. I'm getting it.
Bien. Yeah. And that is a tough thing because, you know, it's something that we need to recognize. Oh, if they're asking me with preterite in the question, they're saying this weekend, it's something that is happening in a finite amount of time. So we need to really use a pretérito to answer that. And limpiábamos would sound kind of odd to them because then they would say, we weren't really talking about your habit. We were talking about this weekend. Bien? Okay. Fantástico. Ok. Vamos a ver. Tenemos aquí práctica con venir. And venir is a little more limiting because now we're only talking about the one action. Hacer, what did you do, can branch out into a whole bunch of different actions, right? And make you practice a whole bunch of different verbs. But venir is very specific. En pretérito, in preterite, it's going to mean came. Somebody came to a place. ¿A qué hora vino el cartero? Vino el cartero. The mailman came. ¿A qué hora vino el cartero a tu casa? O en tu buzón, you know, at your mailbox. Buzón es mailbox. A tu buzón. Ayer. ¿A qué hora vino el cartero? What time did the mailman come?
Ayer el cartero vino a mi casa a la 1.
Okay, el cartero vino a la 1. El cartero vino a la 1. El cartero vino a mi casa a las 5:30 de la tarde. Siempre es muy tarde.
Sí.
Siempre. Estoy al fin de la ruta
Sí.
del cartero, creo. Creo que sí. I think so. Okay. Pero vino. We could not in this instance use vinimos. We couldn't use vine because we're asking about one person, right? So to talk about one human being outside of the realm of myself, it's got to be vino. See, nobody will ever mistake this word vino for the thing you drink. If you're using it as a verb, even if I were to get rid of, even if I were to get rid of this subject of el cartero and just say vino a la 1, no one would ever mistake that for the vino that you drink, because the context of that is saying somebody did that action of coming on in. Okay, so nobody's ever going to take that verb. There is almost no way. There's almost no way to mistake that vino for the thing that you drink. It just isn't going to happen. The context is going to drive that. ¿Cuándo vino a tu casa tu esposo o tu esposa? ¿Cuándo vino a casa?
Mi esposo vino a mi casa a las 5 de la tarde.
Vino a casa a las 5. A las 5 de la tarde. Bien, a las 5 de la tarde. Vino a casa a las 5 de la tarde. It will be very common for people in answering a question like that to only stick in the verb and probably not mention mi esposo at the beginning, because we know who you mean from the question. As long as you use the right verb, people are going to omit the subject in all probability. Vino a casa a las 5. People are very, very likely to omit the el cartero from the first question, because we already know who you're talking about. And they'll just let the verb do all the talking. Okay. ¿Quiénes vinieron a tu casa en el invierno? Who came to your house during the winter? Salud.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Salud, de nada. ¿Quiénes vinieron a tu casa en el invierno? Lots of us have more than one guest in the winter. People want to get out of that slop in the Midwest. Yeah.
Todos vinieron a mi casa.
Todos, muy general. Todos vinieron a mi casa. Everybody. Todos vinieron a mi casa. Bien.
Mis amigos de Chicago vinieron a mi casa.
Mis amigos de Chicago vinieron a mi casa. Bien, perfecto.
Mis primos y mis amigos de Baltimore vinieron a mi casa.
Excelente, fantástico. ¿Qué más?
Mi sobrina y mi hermana vinieron a mi casa en el invierno.
Exacto. Entendido. Understood. Bien, bien. Ok. Es fácil, ¿no? Vinieron. Ok. ¿Qué día vino un paquete de Amazon? What day did an Amazon package come?
Vino el miércoles.
Vino hoy. It came today. You could say vino este miércoles. Sí. Pero es más común decir vino hoy. It came today. Hoy. Vino esta mañana. Vino hace una hora. It came an hour ago. An hour ago will be hace una hora. Hace una hora. It makes an hour. I know, literally. That's the ago. That's their ago phrase. Vino hace una hora.
Well, if you want to say that the package came on, on Martes, on a particular day, what's the syntax of that? Vino el martes,
Vino el martes. Vino el martes. So whereas we will say it came on, that translate, on Tuesday, that translation will not be en. That translation with a day of the week will, to say on a day of the week will be el with the day of the week. Vino el martes, vino el lunes, vino el sábado, así, like that. Buena pregunta. Whereas we say on and the day of the week, they tend to use el. Okay. Vale. Vino esta mañana, vino ayer por la tarde, yesterday afternoon, ayer por la tarde, vino a las 9, came at 9. Así, bien. Okay?
Sí.
Vale, bien. So, this is another nice chunk of 2 irregulars that are kind of odd. They both have an I, la I, the I in the stem. Okay. And they are 2 perfectly great verbs to use. I want to preview. Ooh, and going to the end of the slide presentation does not help. I want to preview the 2 new chunks for this coming week. And I'm going to try to find a video that's going to talk about poder in pretérito, because this one is odd. This is odd. It is odd not only because it is irregular, but because it actually kind of changes the meaning of the verb itself. Ouch. We'll explain that in a little bit. So let's take the part that is going to be easier to figure out. We're going to say, aha, I need the irregular endings for pretérito with these 2 verbs, poder, poner, poder, poder. Wow, the only letter that is different between these 2 is this letter. That's why we're going to look at these together. Poder, poner, poder, to be able to, can. Poner, to put to place, meaning you take something and you move it and you set it on top of something. Set it on top of your desk, put it in your closet, put it on a table, right? Put it in your purse, something. Poner, to put to place. Okay. Bien. But those 2 verbs are both irregular in pretérito. And wow, they're only different by 1 letter. So we're going to have some things to look at here. Uy, vamos a ver. Okay, they are going to use these endings, which are the typical endings that happen when a verb is irregular en el pretérito, when it is irregular in preterite. So we're still going to have that iste, o, imos, istes, hieron. No accent marks. We're going to use those pinky conjugation endings. But the stem, and I've got to get rid of that thing. Okay. The stem, guy, wow. I didn't change that at all. A ver. Poder. Poder is going to use this. Oui. A ver. Pude. Oh, my 15-year-olds used to call that the pudding verb. Pudding. They say, hey, I eat pudding. It looks kind of like pudding. Pude. And this one, oh goodness, I'm not going to say what my students called this one. Poner, pus. I used to say, I don't want to hear you yelling this down the hallways. Puse, puse, cat, meow, meow. And they go, yeah, funny. Okay. Pus. Oh, wow. It gets, okay, let's take a look. This change in the stem is a U. The O flips over to a U. And well, ooh, it kept the D here, but look at this poner. S. What? Where does that even come from? Quien sabe? Who knows? There's no S in poner yet. Yeah. What a weird change to make in the stem. P-U-S, pus. Puse. Okay, so we get these. We get these, and we're going to come back to this managed thing in a minute. Okay. Pude. Yo pude. Nosotros pudimos. Pudiste. Pudistes. We don't hear that, but you may hear it in Spain. Pudo. Pudieron. Okay. So there are forms for poder. Poner will sound like this. Puse, because of great laughter. Pusiste, puso, pusimos, pusistes, if you're in Spain, pusieron, pusieron. Okay, so remember something. Uy, recuerden, por favor, please remember that this will also, whoops, ay, caps, looks like I'm yelling, will also work for ponerse. So remember, if you need to use poner as a reflexive, that won't happen with poder, but it will happen with poner. If you need to use poner as a reflexive, like put on jewelry, put on clothing, ponerse, you still need this. You just need the little pronoun in front of it, right? So poner will work. These forms of puse, pusiste, puso, pusimos, pusieron, they work for both poner and ponerse. The only difference is ponerse will need the little pronoun. Okay. Here is one thing that is something kind of odd. Poder changes slightly in meaning in pretérito. Why do I say that? Poder means to be able to, but, you know, I can skate, I can swim, I can ski. We often use can for that, right? So what happens if you say can in the past, it becomes could. Yeah, in English, it becomes could. And so here's where you have to be careful. Because poder is where we use can, and people say, well, I can swim. I could swim a mile when I was a kid. This is going to be a little different. That idea of could doesn't translate very well for poder in pretérito, not without some more explanation. All right, here's what we mean. Poder in pretérito, when we use it in Spanish, in pretérito, it does not imply ability at all, but rather whether or whether not someone actually managed to get something done, okay? Could is not really a good translation for the past of poder. Sadly, because often when we say could, it just talks about your ability to do something in the past, right? My son could climb when he was a teenager. He could climb outdoors. He was able to do that. It was something he did a lot. So poder, if you mean they used to be able to do it, that they had the ability, you're not going to use pretérito at all. You're going to use imperfecto. It'll be the regular form in imperfecto of podía, podías, podía, podíamos, podían. If you're just talking ability, what somebody could do, was able to do, we really won't use this pretérito at all. The pretérito for poder really has to mean that something actually happened, that they got it done, or that, oh, they couldn't get it done. They couldn't manage to do it. It's going to talk about the results as opposed to the ability. Poder in pretérito refers to the result. Did it happen or did it not happen? You may need to think about that for a bit. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of examples of that. And this is why I wanted to preview this, because if you read it on your own, it really may be one of those what kind of things. And it still may feel like what, even now after I explain it, but hopefully you get a chance to ask the question and we'll clear it up. So in other words, fuimos a la playa, pero mis amigos no podían nadar. We went to the beach, but my friends couldn't swim. And if I say no podían nadar, I mean they couldn't swim, meaning they didn't have the know-how. They didn't physically know how to do it. They didn't know how to swim. They didn't have the ability to swim. It's not talking about a result of the event, fuimos a la playa, we went to the beach. It's saying we went to the beach, but my friends, they couldn't swim. They never learned how to do that. They couldn't swim. I can truly say they couldn't swim. Okay. We need imperfecto for poder in that kind of situation. But somebody may express this idea, and it will be, in fact, because of the preterite, a different idea. Fuimos al lago, we went to the lake, pero mis amigos no pudieron nadar al otro lado. But my friends couldn't swim to the other side. But if I say they couldn't swim to the other side, it really, really means, wow, that action of getting to the other side, it didn't even happen. They didn't manage to make it happen. Okay. No pudieron nadar al otro lado technically means they didn't manage to do it, meaning they didn't get it done. So it's really a separate issue from the were they able to versus the did they actually do it. Poder in pretérito implies got it done, or if it's a no with poder, didn't get it done. It talks about the event, the end result. The end result is what poder talks about if it's in pretérito. So it conveys a total different idea. So the idea it relates in that last sentence is we went to the lake, my friends didn't manage to swim on the other side. Well, they could in fact swim, but they didn't make it to the other side of the lake. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. It's talking about an end result. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you use poder is an odd kind of verb. There are, and we're going to see a few of these for the rest of the month. Poder is an odd kind of verb where there is a very distinct nuance, a change somewhat in the meaning of using poder in imperfecto versus pretérito. Pretérito means what was the end result. Imperfecto means what was the ability. ¿Entienden? Understand? My personal opinion, en mi opinión, para mí, I think poder in imperfecto for most of your conversational needs is more common. Poder in imperfecto for you speaking in a conversational way is probably more useful. But we're going to take a look, because sometimes people are talking to you, they may really mean, ooh, this didn't happen. And then they're going to flip out of imperfecto and flip into pretérito. Okay, let's look at a couple more of examples of these so that you see that contrast between poder imperfecto and poder pretérito. Mi sobrina podía viajar porque tenía sus vacaciones. My niece could travel, meaning she was able to. She had that ability. It was open to her because she had vacation time. Okay. She was able to travel. She was able to do it. But it changes the meaning I am conveying quite a bit to say, mi sobrina pudo viajar a Corea del Sur este verano. My niece, hey, she actually made it to South Korea. Pudo viajar, she managed to travel. You're probably more likely to say something in English like, hey, she made it to South Korea. You know, made it to makes it sound like, hey, she actually got there. The pudo viajar a Corea del Sur means, kind of, it really implies she actually got to that place, that it happened. Not that she had the ability to go there, but it happened. And she was in that place. Entienden? Understand? There's a real line of demarcation once you start to use poder in pretérito. It means that that activity actually occurred, right? They could swim doesn't really tell you when that, you know, they had that ability, but you know, they managed to do something is quite different. So this coming week, I want you to do some practice and see if you can, and this is just, you won't be deciding, do I use imperfecto or do I use pretérito? We're going to practice the oddball, the very, very oddball pretérito irregular de poder. So I want you to figure out, how do I say these ideas? And they're all going to use poder. They're all going to start with that stem of pud, okay? And all these activities are going to mean it happened, that person got it done, that person got it done, or, oop, that person messed up and it didn't happen. That person didn't get it done. If it's a negative, if it uses a no, it means didn't happen. They didn't get it done. Okay. So you're going to have poder, and then you're going to have poner. Oops, poner, right? Poner, and we're going to use it to say things like set the table. You're going to use two things. You're going to use poner or ponerse. You will need to decide, do I make it reflexive or not? Right? Because poner just means you're putting something in a place, in a location, but ponerse, it's going on somebody's body, right? So you'll be using one of those. You'll be deciding, do I use a pronoun or not, right? Do I make it reflexive or not? And, here's why we needed to preview this. Yes. When we use ponerse with a thing, like ponerse la blusa, ponerse los lentes, like ponerse los audífonos, headset, yeah, los audífonos, it means put it on your body. But sometimes that's when we're using ponerse with a thing. I can even say ponerse con crema. I can even use it with con crema, with hand cream, because it's still a thing I'm putting on my body. Sometimes we use ponerse with an adjective. So I want you to try this out for size. This is ponerse, not with putting something on your body, but ponerse with an adjective means somebody got a certain way, got themselves in this state. And it's kind of like we would use in English to say got or became. So when we say somebody blushed, it's common to use ponerse with the color red. Oh, sometimes you might say somebody turned all red. Instead of saying he blushed, he blushed, he turned all red. So think of it that way. Ponerse is often used to indicate a drastic change in somebody's physical or mental state. And then it is appropriate to use ponerse in preterito, but not with a noun like blouse or glasses or headphone, but with a description. So the description number one will be the word red. The description in number two will be angry, upset. The description in number three will be happy. And the description in number four will be sick. So when we say he blushed, he turned red, he got mad, he became, we became happy, they got sick. For this became or got idea, it's ponerse and a description. ¿Entienden? And this is something that people very commonly use. Oh my gosh, he got violently ill. That's a fast change. It's got to be pretérito. And they'll use ponerse. Bien. So that's your little tidbit for the end. Ponerse, pretérito, really, really common to say that somebody got themselves in a certain state. But then we won't be using a noun, we'll be using an adjective. And this happens actually quite a lot. I'm going to see if I can find a good video that will help you with that, to show you some examples ahead of time. Bien, okay. Está bien? We good? And those are going to feel kind of odd because those verbs really have the, you know, they sound very alike. There's really only one letter of change. P-U-D for stem and P-U-S for stem, the D and the S, that's it. So that will take a little bit of practice. Ooh, I was hoping to do a little bit more, un poquito más, quizás no, perhaps we don't have time to do that yet. Next week, what I want you to do also is please go back and review the imperfecto. We're going to also do a little drill next week, and I think we'll do this as our warm-up. For our warm-up next week, we'll take some questions just so that we keep it fresh, that will use all imperfecto, right? Things you might commonly ask that will naturally just be imperfecto, okay? I'm not going to give you a list to look at that ahead of time because imperfecto is a very, very regular regular tense. I'll maybe send you the link once again to how we conjugate that, but we'll have some little impromptu questions that will use the imperfecto to say what somebody used to do. And we're going to include a story. Ooh, I'm deciding. Ooh, I'm going to use a story this coming week because it was a brand new release. It's going to be a video that uses one of the irregulars we had the other week. You're going to see. Oh, I saw. You're going to hear a lot. Ver. Okay. You're going to hear ver a lot. You see a funny little drawing of a ghost there. I saw a ghost. Vi un fantasma. Fantasma Fantasma is the word for ghost. And oddly, it is el fantasma. El fantasma, because it comes from a Greek thing long ago. El fantasma is ghost. And she's going to tell a very easy to understand story, but there will be some mixing of imperfecto. Somebody was doing something, and then some pretérito. They did this. So you're going to have both imperfecto and pretérito mixed in that story, because all stories mix the two. But you will hear a lot of that ver verb. Vi, viste, vio, vimos, vieron. What somebody saw. And that's not too long to listen to. Only about 8. Yeah, sí, 8 minutos. 8 minutos. Okay? Bien? Vale?
Bien.
Perfecto. Bien. Do you need me to send the extra, the review thing on imperfecto to prep that again? See the endings or no?
Yeah,
You
we
got
got
that.
Nah.
we got them.
Don't
We
need to
got it.
send that. Okay, bien. That's easy. That's the aba and ia ending. So we'll warm up with a review of here's when we would only use imperfecto, right? And talk a little bit about that. And we'll move forward with poder and poner, our two new irregulars. I am going to try to find a good video that explains that difference between using poder. Some verbs in Spanish change. I'll give you a little preview, because what we will be looking at this a little bit. So verbs like poder change the meaning of the verb a little bit in pretérito. A verb like saber changes the meaning quite a lot in pretérito. ¿Qué es saber en inglés?
No.
To know.
No.
Okay. So think about this. If I want to say, I knew all the neighbors on my street, is that something that ended at a specific time?
No.
Not so much, really. I knew all the neighbors. When I was a kid, I knew all the capitals of every state in the United States because we had to memorize it. It's a mental process. I knew, right? I knew all the kids in my high school class. Can't really peg a time to that. Saber, very, very often, is used in imperfecto, right? To say that you knew information. But if I flip and use saber in pretérito, it means something happened at a specific time, and it changes the meaning of saber from knew to found out. Because what is the specific point in time meaning of saber? It means it happened and it's done, and it ain't gonna happen again because it came and went like that. So where we say found out, we'll take saber, but we'll use it in pretérito. So sometimes pretérito changes the meaning of a verb into something quite a bit more specific. And that's where that dichotomy between using those two different past tenses can change the meaning of a verb on occasion. Bien?
Sí.
Just as kind of a preview so that you know that sometimes that happens. Not always, but sometimes. Okay. Bueno, entonces, bien, ¿todo bien? Para la semana. All good for the week?
Yep.
Exacto. Muy bien. Ok. Entonces, nos vemos. Sí, que la pasen bien. May you have a good week. Que le pasen bien, ¿sí? Esta semana, for the rest of this week.